Join former FBI senior forensic examiners Becky Passmore and Stacey Eldridge as they dig into the world of digital forensics, one bite at a time. Now leading their own consulting firms and educating the next generation of cyber sleuths, these badass babes of digital forensics bring sharp insight, real-world case experience, and a dose of humor to the bits and bytes that build today's investigations. From deep dives into business email compromise and ransomware attacks, Becky's specialty, to cracking the complexities of iPhone forensics, Stacey's obsession, this podcast delivers insider knowledge for professionals, students, and true crime techies alike. If you've ever wondered what really happens when the digital trail is all that's left, tune in and start parsing the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Parsing the Truth, one bite at a time. We are the true crime podcast that digs into the digital forensics in today's modern crimes. And today we are starting part 2 of the mushroom murders. Becky, where did we leave off last time?
Well, the last time we left off at some of the digital evidence items. We were starting to talk about the browser history. We're starting to talk about some of the artifacts. So we're going to continue this episode on those artifacts and into more of the digital devices.
Yes, so let's start off with some of the mobile phones that were seized. We know that there were mobile devices that she used them because we'd already talked about the cell phone records from the cellular service provider in the last episode. So if you haven't listened to that, make sure to jump back and do that first. Now, the first cell phone that we're going to talk about that was seized was a Samsung mobile phone that was seized from Erin Patterson's house. The investigators examined the phone and found Facebook group chat messages, and in those, Erin was complaining about her husband and his family. Photos recovered from that device were also presented to the court, and one of these images had a black food dehydrator sitting on a white kitchen bench, or like a kitchen counter, as we say here. Now, the exhibit included a table of technical data about the image itself, listing its file name, the file path, and the sizes. The records indicated that this particular image had been modified on April 30th, 2023. We don't have the created date listed here, but so maybe it was modified, or maybe that was just the date they had from it being moved or copied or something like that. But still, April 30th, not too long before that deadly lunch. Now, during part of this testimony, the court also discussed the Google Photos and how it stored them and synchronized the images between the cell phone and the Google Drive, or Google Photos is where the photos actually go. But, as you're using a Samsung, which is an Android device, that's very baked into it. Now, there was some dispute over the interpretation of how those files actually appeared in her account.
Yeah, and then investigators also seized a Samsung tablet that was seized from Erin's home and analyzed, and several photos from that device were shown as well to the court. It depicted yellowish dried mushrooms spread across a plastic tray. Metadata showed that these photos were taken in April and May, as we discussed last episode, around this time frame, and it was before lunch. Suggest they may have been images of mushrooms being dried in the food dehydrator that Erin bought on April the 28th. Photos that were retrieved from Erin Patterson's phone were shown to the court. These were dated May 4th, 2023, included a picture showing a cluster of large field mushrooms on a tray placed on a kitchen scale. This suggests that the mushrooms were being weighed. The same image had been presented earlier in the trial when mushroom expert Dr. Tor testified. He told the court that the mushrooms in the picture appeared to be death cap mushrooms, though he cautioned that they could also display characteristics consistent with other mushroom species.
Okay. Now, the court was shown what appeared to be screenshots of internet searches recovered from her tablet. These were not standard browser history records, but rather screenshots that showed the search results as they appeared on the device screen. So it's unclear whether these screenshots have been created intentionally by the user or automatically by the system. Now, there are ways to tell that, but what we were provided and what, the press was sharing and stuff, that detailed information wasn't available to us at this time. And the important thing to note about these images, they were dated about 2 months, maybe a little bit before the actual deadly lunch. Now, these search results that were in the screenshots show that Ms. Patterson had been looking up information about stage 4 cancer, stage 4 ovarian cancer, and brain lymphoma. When the trial later revisited some of the earlier testimony, witness Ian Wilkinson reminded the court that Erin Patterson had told her lunch guests that she was suffering from cancer. And that was sort of the root cause of why she wanted to have the lunch, was to talk about that. Now, eventually it emerged that this claim was untrue and no medical records existed showing that she had ever been diagnosed with cancer.
So the end of Mr. Fox-Henny's testimony focuses on Miss Patterson's mobile phones. And here's a rundown of the devices. During the trial, it was revealed there was 3 phones, 2 Samsungs and a Nokia, and that one of the Samsungs, referred to as phone A, had never been recovered. Phone records indicated that phone A was the device that was primarily used by Patterson. Phone records appeared to indicate that a SIM card was switched between devices while police were actually searching Patterson's home on August the 5th, 2023.
Wow.
During the search, the phone that was provided by Patterson to police at the end of that search was phone B, which was subject to a remote factory reset after it had been seized and taken into storage.
Okay, wow. So we've got some SIM card swapping going on
During a search.
during a search, and then a different phone that was not her primary phone was turned in to the police. So that's why she
Factory
swapped the
reset.
swims, right? Yeah, and then it was factory reset while it was in their position. So
That's crazy.
lots of stuff going on with the phones here. But let's talk about how they're tracking all of these different phones, because we've got like at least 3 phones in play here. So we're going to dig into these identifiers that you can use to track this evidence, these devices being used. So both your phone and the SIM card, or an eSIM card if that's what you have instead, have unique identifiers. When you conduct an extraction from the phone, this information is extracted from the devices. So examiners can see this information. If the SIM card is in there, we see that information. If there's an eSIM, we see what little information is in there, and we can also tell if that eSIM is active or not. Some phones have both like a physical SIM card and an eSIM, and we can tell all of that information when we do the extraction from the device. We get all that good info when we bring it down. Now, the average Jane can find this information as well by going to their phone and looking at the settings. Let's start talking about the phone itself. It has an IMEI number. This IMEI number is a unique 15-digit number that's unique to every phone. So the IMEI is going to identify the device, the physical phone itself. Cellular providers will log your phone's IMEI because it's the unique identifier that is transmitted to the network when you're accessing it. And it is essential for your network operations. It also is used for tracking stolen devices. You can go on the internet and like check IMEI numbers to see if it's been like blacklisted if you're thinking about buying a used one, or if you're buying a used one and you have it and now it's not working. Well, maybe it was stolen and then then blacklisted, and that's why it's not working. And the final thing that IMEI numbers are used for is for billing. That mattered a lot more a long time ago, like when you were paying like per text and for your, you'd go over your minutes and all that stuff, or, you weren't on the unlimited data plans as that kind of went out of a phase for a while. But it is still used with the billing as well. Now, providers will also use this information on their end to manage their network, block the stolen phones, and they can link an IMEI number to a specific SIM card and therefore account for services and legal reasons.
That's right. And the next is the IMSI, which we refer to as the MZ from the SIM card. This is a unique identifier assigned to every single SIM card. So MZ identifies the subscriber and your phone number. It's also used for network management, authentication, and billing purposes as well. So your provider can see what device you're using with what SIM card. So Erin allegedly starts using two mobile phones, known as Phone A and Phone B, using a SIM card with the number ending in 783. The way this has been presented, this appears to be the phone number and not the MZ number. On July 11th, Erin allegedly connects a new SIM card with the number ending in 835. On August the 5th, a search warrant is executed at Erin's house, where police seize phone B with SIM card number that ends with 835. On August the 6th, Erin allegedly remotely conducts a factory reset of phone B, which is still held by police, which means it was not properly preserved. Erin allegedly continues to use phone A with the number ending in 783, and police say they never recovered this phone.
That is like your worst nightmare as law enforcement, as the custodian of the phone, whoever has the evidence. You never want any alterations going on. And then especially when you're law enforcement, you certainly don't want your evidence wiped while it's in possession for, 2 or 3 reasons, right? Like, you don't want to lose your evidence. You don't want to get accused of mishandling the evidence. And then 3, people go on later and talk about how you didn't properly secure the evidence and to prevent it from being wiped. So what could they have done, Becky, to prevent that phone from being wiped? I mean, there's a couple of options.
Yeah, settings in the phone, turn off Bluetooth, turn off Wi-Fi, turn off any network connections, pull that SIM card out if it's physically available to pull it out. And that prevents it from communicating to the network, which is what you don't want it to do, and which is what we train, put it in a Faraday bag.
Yep.
But this is how we train people so that you don't want that remote access available, which obviously was not protected in what happened in this situation.
Right. And, people use a Faraday, they're like, I got to use a Faraday bag. But then they want to keep it charged. So they have the phone in the Faraday bag. And where am I going with this, Becky? They
Trying to keep it
have,
charged.
yep, they're trying to keep it charged. So now there's a little wire cable coming out, which basically kind of acts
like
as an antenna.
Right.
It's letting the signal right back into the phone. So,
that's right.
It's hard. People try, because, we don't want the phone to die because we want to get that extraction after first unlock, not before unlock. So, they're worried about that. And then, there's just all sorts of things. So the effort is there more often than not. There wasn't any mention of the Faraday bag or not. So we don't know what that status of that was, but somehow that phone maintained connection to the network and got wiped. But because of that, the investigators were unable to recover any data from that device, phone B, that was factory reset on August 6th, the day after it had been seized. Now, digital forensic expert Mr. Fox Henry explained that the lack of recoverable information was due to that irreversible reset of the phone. Now, a table in the forensic report documented 4 separate factory resets of phone B. These occurred on February 2nd, 2023, August 2nd, 2023, August 5th, 2023, and August 6th, 2023. The final three resets all took place within that week following the fatal lunch. Now, additional information in the report described each method used for the reset, and according to the data, the first three wipes were performed locally on the device, while the final reset was wiped remotely by the user. Now, after presenting this evidence, Mr. Fox Henry was excused from the witness stand. He later ended up returning to court following the testimony from doctors and nurses who had described the events that took place at the hospital. Now, during his return to the stand, Mr. Fox Henry clarified some specific dates and times that were contained in that mobile phone report. So it sounds like they just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on the timeline of events.
Yeah, so later when the lead investigator is called to the stand, he also talks about the mobile devices and all the swapping. Stephen Eppingstall. Interesting fact, in Australia, they call the lead investigator the informant, not to be confused with an informer who is providing information to the police. SIM card was moved to the Nokia phone. The court was shown a highlighted phone record that was time-stamped to the afternoon when police were searching Erin Patterson's house. About a week after the lunch, Eppingstall testified that the phone records indicated a SIM card had been swapped for a different one. At 1:45 p.m. on the 5th of August 2023, the actual SIM card change from phone A into a different phone. He added that the new device was a Nokia mobile phone.
So that's the beginning. Well, I don't know. Is that even really the beginning of the swapping? There's a lot of swapping that had been going on a long time for these cell phones. But
Exactly.
around the same time frame as all this stuff is going on, Patterson had told her Facebook friends that she had purchased a new phone after hers was broken and that she had learned how to perform a hard reboot. Later, police executed another search warrant at her house. Now, this one was on November 22nd, 2023, and the purpose of this search was to try to locate several items, including that second mobile phone that had been discussed earlier, phone A, that they had not recovered on the first time because she did the swapping. And Eppingstall stated that the second phone, the phone A, which was originally her primary phone, had never been located by police. During this part of the proceedings, the prosecution reviewed a lengthy set of phone logs. They moved very quickly, though, through the various call logs, jumping between different times and dates, while Eppingstall described how long each call lasted. The prosecution did not go into extensive detail about the individual calls. So, right now, it makes no sense to us. But here's the thing, generally, if they want the jury to be able to look at this information, they've got to have somebody read it into the record. So,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
that's what he was doing. We don't have much context, but evidently they wanted the jury to have this information.
Yeah, and there was certainly lots of commentary from the courtroom listeners about how it was hard to track what was going on with all this SIM card and phone swapping. And we get that because without a report and how they're referencing phone A and phone B, it's hard to follow. But the thing is, when you're describing all of this stuff, you have to get the jury to understand what you're talking about and why it matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we continued to dig, and it appears the police are alleging that the SIM card was in phone B, came out of a Samsung tablet. Now,
Okay.
remember, this phone B was the phone handed over to the police during the search warrant in August.
Now, there was some commentary about why was the SIM card that had the number ending with 835 and how do you know that it was coming from a phone tablet versus a phone? So we can review now what was said in the media and then we can loop back around and give you some facts about that. So here's the quote. And the phone contains a SIM card that has barely been used for the purposes of being a phone SIM card. It's been used as a tablet SIM card. So it's got data, a couple of SMS records, but it's not a SIM card, according to the police, that has been extensively used for phone calls over a long period. According to the police, it doesn't reflect what a regular SIM card that is put in a phone shows, and it doesn't have like a mixture of phone calls and data and messages. It doesn't look like this according to the records. So that's the end of the quote about what was said in the news. So, first off, does a SIM card that's used only for data have a phone number? Yes, they actually do. Most of them do. They are going to be assigned a traditional phone number, even if the user doesn't make the calls or text. Some might not, but for the most part, they're going to have a phone number. Now, just because it has a phone number doesn't mean that you can call that phone number. That's a whole different bag. Now, secondly, let's review the statement about the SIM card in phone B failing to show a mixture of phone calls, data, and messages. Again, it's unclear what records they're talking about. We don't know, are they talking about records from the mobile service provider, or are they talking about extraction reports that came from the phone itself? But let's talk about like what kind of data we typically see on a SIM card today.
Yeah, so many SIM cards can store a small number of contacts, names, and numbers. Like some store SMS messages, typically older or unsynced messages, though modern phones store most SMS in internal memory. Text message settings, service center numbers that can be found, and some may store a small amount of app specific information like operator settings for internet access point names and so on. Examine the SIM card. You're not going to be able to find much of anything about usage. So you've got to either get the records from the device itself or from the cellular providers, from the phone cellular providers. But phone B in this case was wiped several times, so really not much was retrieved from it.
Right.
Then it seems the implication is that the police are stating the mobile service provider records didn't reveal anything that indicated that this was a SIM card used in a phone for placing and receiving calls, texts, and mobile data usage on the go.
But today, a lot of people don't like to use their phones for calling. They're like, I don't answer my calls. Please don't call me. I won't call you. It's used like a handheld computer. We're using the apps, we're texting, and even texting is on a downward sort of spiral. Most people are communicating through apps. So think like WhatsApp and a myriad of other apps that you can use in place of your standard text messaging that comes through your cellular provider. But even if you don't want any people to call you, and even if you don't answer calls, we're generally all faced with the telemarketers calling us. But the key takeaway from all of this is just how the jury was going to have to put all of this information together, and would they be able to do it? Because they were shown numerous records related to the different phones and the different SIM cards. And so it did sound like people were confused at the beginning about all these different phones, and they seemed to be wondering what it all meant. Now, based on some of the reporting, eventually they seem to be able to figure it out and tie it all together. So, with all that being said about all the different phones and the different SIM cards and the swapping, what is the key takeaway from all of this? One, Erin was swapping SIM cards. She puts a SIM card that's from a tablet into her phone, and that phone is not her primary phone. And then she turns that into the police when they're there on that first search warrant. So, basically, she's giving them something that she knows doesn't have anything on it because she doesn't use it. It's not her primary phone, and that SIM card certainly wasn't from her primary phone either. And that the phone that she did turn in was factory reset several times before she even gave it to them.
Yeah, that's so bizarre. So later, the prosecution enters a picture from the CCTV of Erin at the hospital with a picture of her phone. Then they show a picture of Erin sliding her phone over to the police the day of the search on August, which was a few days after the hospital. The prosecutor then asked, was the phone shown in the CCTV video the same phone that was turned over to the police? And it was a matter at that time of the jury to decide.
Now, back to the testimony from the informant. Remember, the lead detective in Australia. He's testifying about evidence from the computers seized from the house. So, this is the second testimony about evidence that was on the computers. The prosecution described these specific reports as artifacts of Chrome website visits made on the computer. The report briefly flashed on the screen, and it included some visits to several different pages on the iNaturalist website. And he talked about the dates from May 18th and then either March or May 28th of 2022. It was so quick, the month was unsure. But anyway, so more stuff on the iNaturalist website visits. I think I said earlier that they were talking about the Bing being used as a search engine. And so it must have been an Edge browser being used because that's the default for like Windows stuff. But I guess for some reason, this person is using Chrome with Bing. Not my favorite search engine, but use what you like. Now, another image was shown to the jury, which was a screenshot of the iNaturalist website. This screenshot displayed a world map with many red markers across several areas, including a dense swath of red over Europe. The search bar at the top of the page showed the word death cap. Now, this image that was presented to the courtroom was taken in December 2024. So this is, nearly a year and a half after the lunch. The judge reminded the jury that aspects of the site may have changed between the date of Patterson's alleged visit to the sites in 2022, so that's over 2 years earlier, and informant Eppingstall explained that the red dots represented reporting sightings of death cap mushrooms that had been uploaded.
So the court then viewed a screenshot focused on the wider Melbourne region, still using the search term death cap, and a list of recent death cap sightings was generated in a column alongside that map. So the investigator Eppingstall noted that this 2024 screenshot would display different sightings than the version that Miss Patterson allegedly accessed in 2022. Another image that was then shown was highlighted, and it had a specific death cap mushroom sighting listed on the iNaturalist by a user, with the pin located at Bricker Reserve in Moorbin, Melbourne's southeast, for an observation dated May 2022.
Let's talk about these 2024 screenshots and Eppingstall's statement that this screenshot would display different sighting information than the version Erin would have accessed 2 years earlier in 2022. And those, that 2022 stuff is from her browser history. So I'm wondering, why did they decide to show this map from 2024?
Right. I mean, how is it relevant that this map is going to be different than 2 years prior? And why? I mean, why would they do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're trying to demonstrate, there's lots of reports on these death cap mushrooms. Okay, but there would have been a better way to show what it might have looked like back in 2022, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They could have just used the Wayback Machine.
Right? Exactly.
Go
way back.
Underutilized tool.
It is an underutilized tool. Absolutely.
And we have no control over whatever's been archived, but it archives a ton of sites. And going from 2024 back to 2022, there is definitely still going to be stuff there because we've gone even way back in time. Because remember, we talked about this in one of the Casey Anthony wrap-up cases where we were still able to pull stuff up from
Absolutely.
2005.
That's
on
right.
there. So you can go way back on the Wayback Machine and see
back
what it
on the
looked
Wayback
like.
Machine. Yeah.
Yeah. You might have to make the decision okay, May 2022, nothing archived that month. So do you want to go a little before or you do want to go a
Hmm.
little after? You'd have to make that decision, or maybe you do both, right? You split the difference and be like, well, this is what it looked like a month before, and this is what it looked like in the following month, and this is as close as we can get to what she might have seen on that page on that day.
That's right.
So I think you can go ahead, Becky, and kind of get back into that testimony again.
Sure, absolutely. So then the next the court viewed a Bing search for iNaturalist, which brought up a list of results. The first of which was the iNaturalist website frequently discussed during the trial. Eppingstall confirmed that these screenshots were generated by taking URLs from the digital forensic analysis of Erin Patterson's computer and entering them into a browser. So after the Bing search results, the court was shown the iNaturalist homepage.
Now, the next day, testimony begins with the cross examination of Eppingstall. The defense noted that only a limited number of extracted texts had been requested from the estranged husband's phone. They asked Eppingstall questions regarding the cell phone tower sites, the iNaturalist website, and about the Facebook messages. He was also asked specifically whether he thought things could have changed when looking at a website 2 years later, to which he responded yes. The defense reintroduced the Facebook post, this time showing comments from the other members of the Facebook group that had not been presented by the prosecution previously. Now, Eppingstall was also asked about his confidence regarding the SIM card swapping, and he stated that once he sees a new IMEI, he's confident that the SIM card has been swapped. Now, during the search of Miss Patterson's house, she was allowed to use her phone while the police were present, except for roughly a 14-minute period where she called her lawyer. And so when she was calling her lawyer, the police were not with her. And so remember that IMEI, that is assigned to the phone itself. So that's how you can see when one SIM moves from one to another one. You can see that on the cell phone records from the service provider. He was also on the stand the next day for the cross, but nothing shocking was revealed then.
Yeah, so the prosecution rests, and now they call Erin Patterson to the stand. Erin will be on the stand for 8 days. Erin Patterson admitted to performing 3 factory resets on her phone. Interesting. Including while it was in police possession. She told the court about several factory resets carried out on a phone referred to in the trial as Phone B, which she handed to police on August the 5th after they searched her home. Miss Patterson explained that one of the resets occurred because she panicked and the fact that her phone contained all her apps, including Google account that stored her photos. She stated, I knew that there were photos in there of mushrooms and the dehydrator, and I just panicked, and I didn't want them, the detectives, searching the house to see them.
Oh my.
Oh
Now,
my.
Miss Patterson also said that she carried out another factory reset while her phone was in a police locker. She told the court, at some point after searching my house and the interview and the detectives brought me home, I remember thinking, I wonder if I can log into my Google account and see where all my devices are. She continued on. So I did that and I could see my phone and my children's devices, and it was really stupid, but I thought, I wonder if they'd be silly enough to leave it connected to the internet.
Oh
So
my
I
gosh.
hit factory reset to see what happened, and it did. Hit factory reset. So Miss Patterson stated she did not remember performing any web searches for death cap mushrooms. We kind of talked about it earlier, but again, the remote wiping, how did it happen? Were there options to stop it?
Yes, and that is where so much is missed during the preservation phase of digital evidence. I know that there's a lot of triage that can take place on digital evidence, but if you don't properly preserve it in the state that it's in for it to not be altered, these types of things are going to happen.
Right. And there's different situations where you have to weigh like the pros and cons
Sure.
of what you're doing with it. Because in some situations, and Larry McLean talked about this when we were talking about the thing about Pam, he had the phone on consent. And so
Yes.
he was going through and previewing because he was trying to get as much info as he believed he needed to try to get that search warrant to keep it before the consent was revoked. And with today's phones, it's getting harder and harder to shut off
Oh, yeah.
the data, the Wi-Fi, all that stuff. It used to be able, you could just put it in airplane mode, didn't need to know the pin, easy peasy. So now you're working against that. You have an entire Faraday room that you can go in and leave this
Right.
phone on while you're doing this sort of stuff. And then you're thinking about, oh, is it going to have enough charge if I got it in a Faraday
Right.
bag? Because remember, your battery is going to drain super fast if you
Right.
have it like on and connected to a
Yeah.
network, and then you put
You
it in the Faraday bag. It's gonna, and you still have the data and Wi-Fi enabled. It's just gonna be pinging like crazy trying to find a signal, and it's gonna drain the battery super fast. So there's all these
Right.
decisions to make.
Because we have to remember that cell phones are designed to communicate to a network. And if
Right.
you take away that connection, it's still doing its job pinging back to a network, looking for a network, trying to find service to provide service for the customer. So it's doing its job. And we as professionals have to do our job too to disconnect it and maintain the integrity of the device as well as keep it powered on till you can get an extraction from it.
Yep. Yep. And it's the same sort of thing like trying to get into the cell phones. Do you know that you will have 10 attempts at that bad pin code before it's going to reset itself?
That's right.
We only get 3, so there's lots of things that even if you know all the things and you try and you do everything right like you're supposed to do,
That's right. You can
the
still
phone,
miss it. Yeah.
yeah,
You
the
can
phone
still
can
miss.
wipe.
Yeah. It can still get wiped. It can still make a connection. It can still get updates. It can, like, all the things can still happen.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, we're at a stopping point where on our next episode, we will continue with Erin's testimony on the stand. So until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and as always, keep parsing the truth one bite at a time.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us to get notified the next time a new episode drops. If you can do more, head on over to parsingthetruth.com and donate by clicking on the donate button. Parsing the Truth is a nonprofit organization, and we are raising money to send a new digital forensic examiner to IASIS training next year in Orlando. Thanks.